Joining us right now, looks like nobody here, right?
Hey, it's nobody here, man. How are you, Billy?
Okay. What are you going to enlighten me with today?
Not much. I don't know. I mean, I do know, but I don't think I'm gonna
you
be
just
inviting
help,
anyone
you
tonight.
just trying to tell me that the phone is working fine. So is that why you called?
No.
The phone
No, I
system is
wanted to
good.
talk boxing like usual, but one thing that really was on my mind, just because I was just in the chat room just now, was Jennings versus Klitschko. I know you haven't talked about it much, but I'm really upset about that fight.
You
And
know,
I think it's a bad fight.
a bad means good or bad means bad.
No, a bad fight as in Jennings is just going to lose. He might not make it out of third
It
round.
is a bad fight. Listen, I like, because like, hey, man, he's bad. Now, that bad means good, right? But you meant bad mean bad. Like, that's terrible.
Bad
Right,
means
right.
terrible.
So bad doesn't mean good in this. I got you. But listen, here's the thing. They were dropping hints about that fight a couple of weeks ago. And then Tyson Fury, after his fight against Derek Chisora, he claimed that, he's the next fight. But here's the deal. It was announced by K2 Promotions that the Tyson Fury fight will happen. It's going to happen in the spring, but they get to have a mandatory, a voluntary title defense prior to that, and that's the Jennings fight. And I agree with you. I don't like the fight. I'm a big Jennings fan. I like Bryant Jennings. I think he's an exciting fighter. I just think he's too small. I think he's more of a cruiserweight, and I don't see him standing a chance with Klitschko. But you never know, right?
I mean, I think you do know. I mean, I just don't. There's nothing. I mean, watching him fight Perez, I mean, he had trouble with Perez. How is he gonna deal with Klitschko? I mean, what's he gonna do? There's no special effects with Jennings. I mean, he's a good fighter. He's a solid fighter, but he's definitely not ready for that fight. Maybe he gets lucky. I don't know. He's a Philly fighter. I guess you got to always think that.
Let me ask you this.
Terrible fight.
Let me ask you this. Realistically, whether you like Klitschko or not, who can beat him?
Who can beat him? I mean, really, I don't know. There's hopefuls, right? So, I think. I mean, I like Deontay Wilder, but I don't know that Deontay Wilder is really going to be ready to fight him when it's actually his time to fight.
Well, wait a minute. Time out. Deontay Wilder is fighting for the the WBC World Heavyweight title in his next fight. So should he win? Win that? He's a world titleist. So that line of he's not ready goes out the window, right? Do you agree with me on that?
No, I think sometimes people have titles and they're just not ready to fight.
But then they shouldn't have
a storied champion.
But they should. But they should.
Canelo, you said yourself that he wasn't really ready to fight Floyd, and he was a champion. He just wasn't really ready.
No, wait.
Things like that happen.
Yes, but nobody has ever said that they use that as an excuse. It's like Berto. It's just that listen, we have so many titles. I know you think that's great, but the truth of the matter is this: once you get a title, regardless of how you got it, you can't hide behind the "I'm still being developed" line.
Oh no, I'm not talking. I'm not. This is not an excuse. I'm just talking from an objective boxing person. I mean, I just think that like Deontay Wilder, when he's going to have to fight Klitschko, which I think he's going to beat Stavern. I mean, maybe he won't, but let's say he beats him, he's going to have to fight Klitschko. Within probably a year of that, I would say.
Right.
And I don't really think that he's going to be ready to do that, but I don't know. So to me, he's a hopeful. He's a hopeful that maybe he could beat him. Tyson Fury, again, you made the same point. He's as big as Klitschko. He might give him a run for his money, right? And then I'm going to say this, and this is going to be off the wall. You're going to make fun of me. But I think Shannon Briggs is more of a hopeful than even Brian Jennings for that matter.
Please. You are just such a guy that just gets sucked in. Let me just ask you this. Let me ask you this. Okay, I want you to think. Now I'm going to ask you a serious question. All right. Yeah. So in all seriousness, I want you to just get all your silliness and your off the wall mentality, all of that. I want you to just put it aside for a second. All right. Yeah. I want you to put aside belts and who's considered a champion and who's not, and who says this one's good and all of this. And I want you to think about these fighters right now, based on what you've seen, based on what nobody here has seen and watched, and knowing what you know about the sport. and you can evaluate skill sets of these fighters. All right. So keep in mind, forget titles, forget records, forget. I want you to just go 100% of your opinion of skill sets alone. Now, keep that in your mind. And now I pose the same question back to you. If Vladimir Klitschko is on the red corner, if he's in the red corner, which fighter that's out there, whether he's ready now or whether he will be ready in the future or whatever, do you see having a chance of beating Klitschko in the next 3 years?
Well, 3 years is a long time.
No, the reason why I say 3 years is because I don't see Klitschko lasting more than 3 years. There's nothing left for him. But I mean, in terms of skill set, I'm trying to get a feel for your opinion of who could beat Klitschko based on what you've seen from their toolbox full of tools.
For the fighters that are fighting today, that are at the top of the sport right now, none of them.
None of them, exactly. And I agree with you.
Doesn't have a legitimate chance. I mean, obviously there are chances, but I wouldn't put money on anybody.
Now even your boy, Deontay Wilder, all right? Now I know he's got the knockout pop. And I know that if he connected with Klitschko, he's got just as good of a chance of knocking out Klitschko as any other heavyweight that weighs 200 pounds or more, because that's just the nature of the beast, right? Yeah. But even that guy, even Deontay Wilder, and let's beef him up. Let's say that Deontay Wilder, let's just, for argument's sake, say that he's the hardest punching heavyweight active today. Let's say it. Let's give him that accolade right now. I don't know if I believe it, but let's give him that accolade for this argument. And going into the ring with all his punching power that we're assuming he possesses, do you really think that the rest of his game is good enough to be competitive with a Klitschko, even assuming that he gets better?
Deontay Wilder is a person, because when you say seeing a fighter and what they could potentially do are two different things. Like, for example, we don't know anything about Deontay. Unless you're in his camp, you have no idea what he does, because he hasn't done anything.
Exactly. And I say the same thing. You're the guy that says that he's going to beat Stavern. Now, Stavern is, and I don't know if you were listening to the show when I first opened up, but I took both of their resumes, and I pointed out that neither one of them have anything to really brag about. I mean, it's not like Stavern is this great fighter and Wilder isn't. I mean, I'm not suggesting that. I just think that Stavern represents the first real fighter that Deontay Wilder is getting in there with, and I think it's going to be a huge test for Deontay Wilder. And my argument is it shouldn't be a test. It's a title fight. This guy should already be proven. We shouldn't be wondering. We shouldn't be wondering if he knows if he can go 4 rounds. We shouldn't be wondering if he knows how to throw a body shot. If he has any defense, can he do more than a 1-2 knockout punch? We don't know. And everybody is supportive of Wilder. They're what's his name's calling me a non-American because I'm not rooting for what. Listen, I want him to be good, but I just have not seen anything in his game that makes me believe that this guy is anything more than a power puncher.
And I agree with you. I mean, I have to agree with your point, and it's right. And there's a lot of uncertainty for Deontay Wilder, but Deontay Wilder versus Stavern, I don't know how that matters compared to when you're comparing, or you're trying to figure out whether Wilder can beat Klitschko.
No. I was just using it. No. I was using their 2 resumes as an example to you that neither one of them are good. I'm not saying Deontay's bad and Stavern is good. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they're both not that great.
Yeah, and that's part of how the game is. I mean, there's nothing they can do about it. But the issue is just that Deontay Wilder is fighting a much smaller guy in Stavern, and Stavern's not fast. So I don't even know if he's going to be able to close the distance enough. And I don't see Deontay Wilder making the mistakes that Areola made. So that's why I feel like Wilder will win.
Yeah, but they fight 2 different. But here's the thing. I do see Stavern making the mistake of going into the fight with Wilder with a similar game plan as he had for Chris Arreola, and I think that would be great for Deontay Wilder. That's his. I think he's praying every night that Bermane Stiverne goes into that fight exactly how he did with Chris Arreola, because I don't think he comes out of it on his feet, Stiverne. But I think that Stiverne, if he fights a smart fight, I think he's going to overwhelm Deontay Wilder with not so much with punching power or anything that he's going to shock him with, but just the fact that Deontay Wilder has never seen it. They've overprotected him so much, and I've had people argue with me and say, well, he was an Olympian. He fought all these world-class amateur fighters, but the truth of the matter is he didn't. He didn't have a tough road to his bronze, because there wasn't that many fighters in that division. Plus, he only had, I think, 38 amateur fights in his whole life. So, I mean, it's not like he's that experienced.
The fact is, if he's an Olympian, he has world-class hand speed. You have to at least give him that. But that doesn't mean he's going to, it doesn't mean he's a world beater. It means he has fast hands, which is really half the game, especially when you're fighting, in my opinion, when you're fighting a fighter that's shorter than you in Stiverne. And that's why I'm picking Wilder, just based on those types of things, and the fact that Stiverne, just like you said, he hasn't shown anything spectacular in his background.
No.
So, it's kind of it's pick and play. Right?
Not at all. I've never once said Stiverne is the savior, But what makes you think that an Olympian automatically has blazing hand speed? I mean, you think Deontay Wilder...
world-class hand speed doesn't mean he is.
You think...
Well, that's something I pick up. That's something I didn't make up. That's something I got from watching old videos specifically. Yeah, that's something George Foreman always said.
Yeah, but you think that Deontay Wilder has world-class hand speed? Is that the way you're turning?
For heavyweight? Sure. Why wouldn't he? Why would you think the opposite?
Have you seen him throw more than 1-2 punches that would back up what you're saying, that he has hand speed? I mean, can you show me a video clip of Deontay Wilder landing 4 or 5 punches that can show me hand speed? Because I never saw it.
When I say world-class hand speed, I mean just your delivery of your punch specifically. I mean, I don't mean...
You don't know what you mean. Why don't you just tell me the truth? You don't know what the hell you mean. Because...
I know. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you why. There's 2 ways why I know. That's a quote really from George Foreman. I've heard him say it multiple times. It's one thing. That's actually why he was worried about fighting Frazier in the first place, because of that. The second reason is because I saw a clip of Deontay Wilder getting taught by Lennox Lewis of how to throw a jab faster, right? And he's not slow. He's definitely not slow in his delivery. So, and to me, if I'm fighting a short guy, my fast jab is really what's going to save me, especially a slow guy like Stiverne. Well, there's really no special effects with him. So, he can throw a jab all day. The question is just like you said, can he throw multiple punches in succession and have his footwork set up properly so he cannot get too much damage, like Chris Arreola had that problem.
Right.
That's a big question mark. And you're right. There's a big question mark. I just think that he can do it.
Well, when you're building up a fighter, and this has been my argument about the route that they chose for Wilder, when you're building up a fighter, you want to have them get an infusion and a different bunch of fighters that they can fight, so that they can develop these skill sets, so that they can learn how to use a jab when they're fighting a taller guy, or punch down when they're fighting a smaller guy, or when a brawler comes in to know how to keep him at bay, or when you got a runner, how to cut the ring off. And all these things is when a young fighter is subjected to this as he's going up, as he's climbing the ranks. He's toning, fine-tuning his game. He's getting better. He's learning on the job. All these things, and the end result is you end up with a world champion. And when you get the shot at the world title, you not only have a good chance of winning, but you have a good chance of holding on to it for a while. This is where I believe that a fighter like Deontay Wilder has not had the opportunity to get better, because they're overprotecting him for some reason. Now let me take another fighter and give you an example of how they followed the different route and what the end result was. Not in the heavyweight division, but look at Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford, people forget, Terrence Crawford was a guy that was fighting out of Nebraska who was undefeated and had the label of a guy from the circuit where he was fighting, truck drivers and taxi cab drivers and this and that, and he wasn't very good. He was brought on as an opponent in his first big fight on Showtime, and he won. He immediately got put in again with another tough fighter, not expecting to win. He was the B side of the fight, and he won again. And then all of a sudden, the rest is history. He beats Ricky Burns, and beats Gamboa. The kid has actually gotten good, and he's a solid fighter. Same thing. Look at Gary Russell Jr. Same thing. They overprotected him, and look what happened. So I'm just afraid, and everybody's got me wrong about Deontay Wilder. I know I'm critical of Deontay Wilder, and the reason is because Deontay Wilder says he's the best in the world, and he's not. I would love to have Deontay Wilder be that guy we all want in the heavyweight division, but I blame his team on not letting him get better. And the same thing is happening with that kid, Ruiz. I had a lot of people get on my case because I was making fun of him because he looks like the Pillsbury Doughboy and all of this stuff. But he's not getting a chance of getting better either. They keep handing him, and everybody says, "Oh, why you so high on Anthony Joshua?" Well, and you said yourself, you were critical of his opponents and everything else. You were making fun of Michael Sproat and all of this. But the truth of the matter is if you really look at his 10 fights, they have been increasing his level of opposition, and they have been throwing him different types of fighters so that he could learn different things. I just don't think Deontay has had that opportunity, and whether it's his fault or not, I think he's going to see a guy that is not scared of him, that is going to show him things he's never seen before when he fights Stiverne, and that's not even coming from a great fighter in Stiverne. Stiverne's marginal at best.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, what you're saying is 100% right. We don't know with Deontay at all. We have no idea, and we're not gonna know until we actually see it.
Right.
He has sparred with Klitschko though before, so he does know what world class fighting really is. I mean, he is sparring, but still,
and
you don't get a lot of chances to do that. So.
And Klitschko said that out of the young fighters, that the best fighter that he's been in, and he said that he will definitely be a dominating world champion, he said, was Anthony Joshua. And he said that the reason was that he was willing to learn and do do that stuff. But we'll have to wait and see. But let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you think, with all the fanfare that's surrounding Deontay Wilder, do you think that if he steps in that ring with Bermane Stiverne and loses, aside from you having to send me my bottle of Pinch Scotch, aside from that bet, okay, do you think that a majority of these so-called Wilder fans are going to be saying the same thing we always hear now? He was exposed. See, he was nothing, and that the guy gets
out.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
By decision, no.
You know something. Your outlook is totally. What you just said just made my stomach turn.
Why?
Because
Deontay Wilder loses by a close decision.
Yeah, but time out.
His fans aren't going to care.
Yeah, but listen.
But if he gets knocked out.
Yeah, but getting knocked out, especially in the heavyweight division, is the risk that every fighter takes when the bell rings. So it's not like a fighter that gets knocked out 10 times. Every time he gets in the ring, he gets knocked out. Look at Deontay Wilder's last opponent, Jason Gavrin. A fraud of a fighter. He got knocked out by Deontay Wilder, and he just got knocked out last week by a big, giant Chinese fighter. So, I mean, it does not mean that they're exposed. I think that if Deontay Wilder comes out of that fight, whether he wins, no. If he wins, I can't say what I'm going to say. But if he loses the fight and loses it in any way, shape, or form, a blowout decision, a knockout loss, a close decision, or whatever, I think that the blame has to be put on his team, because I don't believe that they have given Deontay Wilder enough time to and enough tests in terms of opponents to make him any better. I think that we've seen the same level of Deontay Wilder for a long time.
you're right about the team. You're right. If that were to happen, if he were to get into like a blowout loss or something like that, where he makes some silly mistake, that he shouldn't make or whatever it is, you can blame his team, and you wouldn't be wrong in doing that. But at some point in time, some of that blame has to be on Deontay Wilder for thinking for himself.
Wait a minute. How many times do you hear, and I'm just playing devil's advocate with you, because how many times, and I know you're tight with the devil and all, but let's look at it. How many times do you hear, we are training for this fight. We are going to do this. We are going to do that. We're going to do this. When we get in there, we're going to do this. The bell rings, and the fighter loses, and then the first thing they say is, he didn't do what we told him. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. It becomes
exactly.
Yeah, it becomes him. We becomes him. And that's what they're going to do to Deontay. Listen, Deontay Wilder has a lot of leeches around him. Mayweather's got a lot of leeches around him too. But Mayweather's smart enough to know. He's been around the game his whole life. So somebody screwing Mayweather, I'm sure they do. I'm sure they get the opportunity to take advantage of him, but not as many as a guy like Deontay Wilder. I think that they're taking advantage of Deontay. They're cashing out. This is what they call a cash out fight, and everybody that's involved with Deontay Wilder, is going to be even after this next fight. And then, it's all good, because even if he doesn't win the fight, he's going to get another big payday, So, financially, he's in good shape. Listen, I wanted him to rise and become a dominating fighter the right way. He didn't take that route. He took the quick, easy route, and it's going to bite him in the ass. There's no easy way in doing anything in life. You know that.
Well, yeah, there are a lot of things that you're saying that are correct, and I don't know about his team or whatever, but I don't like what I don't like about people, and a lot of people do this. They say like X and X fighter, he has to blame his team or whatever about what happens. Right? If your team screws you, it's okay. It happens, whatever. But if you let that happen, and if you don't make changes and you don't wise up, it's on you. So as a man, I'm looking at Deontay Wilder. Who he picks on his team, that's up to him. If they screw him over, it's their fault, but it's really his fault. So, I look at it like this. Even if Deontay Wilder beats Stavern, and I think he will, and even if he goes on to beat Klitschko, which I would like to see happen, I don't know if that's going to happen, but if it did, I don't see Deontay Wilder being a long-term champion anyway. So, to me, I just want to see a nice, good American heavyweight for the time being, and hopefully some other American heavyweight comes up, because we don't have any. And I don't think Brian Jennings is anything. And that's how I look at it.
Well, he's just too small. But that's kind of like one of the problems I have with the sport today. And by the way, Andy Ruiz is the guy I'm talking about. Just to give you an example, he's fighting in a couple of weeks in Phoenix against Sergey Lukaevich. The guy that. So this is backing up what I'm saying about these guys. But listen, when push comes to shove, the fighter has to fight. The fighter. If you want to be a fighter, you're gonna have to do what you got to do. And you're right. It is Deontay who picks the team, but it's also naive. Guy being naive, and there's a lot of sharks in this business. And we'll have to wait and see. Listen. One of the problems, I think, what I was starting to say, is that too many Americans want to see an American heavyweight, and the landscape of the sport of boxing is changing, and the reason why is pretty simple, because a young kid that gets into sports has so many options in the United States to play, make money if they're good enough to become a professional, more opportunities in baseball and football and basketball and even hockey to a degree. Boxing is at the end of the line. That's why we see in these other countries that may not have as many opportunities for the young people. That's why we're seeing this infusion of a lot of Russian fighters, and Hispanic fighters are always been popular. They love the sport, but it's because it's cheap. You don't need anything but a pair of gloves. In baseball, in the Dominican Republic, you got a lot of the poverty kids playing baseball with their bare hands. They don't even have gloves. I mean, so it's all relative. To play football, you got to spend a bunch of money to get all the equipment and stuff. So I think the movement that we see in boxing is related to the way the country is, and I think it's unfair to say I want to see an American heavyweight when I'm looking. Me personally, I don't care if it's an American heavyweight, if it's a Russian heavyweight, if it's a German heavyweight. I don't care. All I want is a legitimate heavyweight champion. That's what I want.
I think as a boxing fan, yes, of course you want to have good champions everywhere, right? But as an American, we've had so many great heavyweights. We want one. And there's nothing wrong with that.
But we need them. But you need them. You need a pool of them. No, nobody here. How can we?
No, you're right. You're right.
How can we say?
We still want it.
Yeah, but I know we want it. I would love to see another Mike Tyson. Come on, man. I loved it. But we just don't have them. We don't have them trying to be fighters. That's
we also don't have trainers either.
No, you're right.
We saw the great trainers of like the 60s, 50s, and 70s.
Yeah, but it's what I've always said. The reason why, and Alex and I talk about this with the Blast from the Past every single week. Back in those days, and all the way up until the 80s, what was happening was boxing was a trade. When you became a fighter, you went to the gym, you got interested in it, you became an amateur, you became a pro. When your days were over as a pro, you stayed in the sport. Maybe you became a trainer, maybe you owned a gym, maybe you became a promoter or a manager or a cut man or something, but you were in the business. So you said, I got 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years in the business. Today it's not the case. I think the biggest, most clear example of it was Chris Algieri's corner a couple of weeks ago. These guys weren't boxing guys. They were new generation MMA, fitness, nutrition. That whole thing.
Was a world champion though, kickboxing too.
Yeah, but my point is that they're not boxing people. It showed, and you're right. We do need more boxing people in the business. We really do. But anyway. You know what? Listen, it's going to be a good test for Deontay. I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking
forward to your Scots too.
I'm looking forward. I got my spot all ready for the new bottle. But anyway, aside from that, I got to get going here. But what's your quick thoughts on the Hall of Fame? Are you happy? Are you glad with these guys or what?
I don't really know much about Smolder, but I like the fact that Mancini got in. I don't really like Lampley, but I think he deserves it.
Right.
And
right.
Those are kind of those are only people that I really know that I care about.
Prince Ahmed. What about Prince Hasim Hamed?
Yeah, I don't really have a thought on that. I'm kind of surprised that he got in too, but
come on, the guy lost one fight in his career. He dominated the division, and like Alex said on the show the other day, he was one of the first fighters to get us interested in the lower weight classes. Modern. So I think he deserves it, and I think everybody deserves it except Smoger. I don't see how. And listen, all seriousness, okay? I don't see how a guy like him got in there. All right, I just don't. And as a matter of fact, referees. To be an exceptional referee, Art McCanty Sr. was a decent referee. Wasn't great. He's just very popular. I was going to say Ray Donovan, but what's his name? Was it Donovan? Donovan. I'm thinking Ray Donovan of the show Ray Donovan, but there was his whole family. As a matter of fact, Art Donovan was a football player. His father was a big time referee, Mills Lane. These guys maybe they deserve it, but Smoger, I mean, the guy is, he's hugging and kissing fight. I mean, just his performances over the last 2 or 3 years should have nixed him getting in 100%. But it just goes to show.
He must be a really nice guy.
No, it's not. He's not. He was disbarred and everything else. He's not a nice guy. No, what it is that the media put him in. Guys like the TV guys that say, "Oh yeah, he's doing a great job," just because he lets him fight. Because guys like Joe Cortez was so bad breaking fighters up that when you see a guy like Smoger who lets them fight, that's supposed to be a good referee. Go watch the tape.
I don't know. I don't know enough about Smoger to really.
Go watch the tape of Art McCanty Jr. When he was. Suck it up, kid. Suck it up. With what's his name? When he was hobbling along against in the junior middleweight fight against Cotto. When what's his name there hurt his leg at Madison at Yankee Stadium. Remember? And McCanty, his corner tried to throw in the towel, and he threw it back at them. And
No, I do.
Come on, man. That was a couple of years ago. I can't think of his name. So somebody should help me out here. Anyway, terrible stuff. But anyway, hey, this was a good call. Finally, I get a good call from you. But hey, give my best to you.
By the way, I'm picking Rosado for this weekend.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm picking Rosado. I'm gonna go with Rosado. I think it's time. I think it's his time. It's his chance to win. If he doesn't win here, he's done. I think he's gonna do it. I'm a big underdog picker, but I'm gonna pick him anyway.
I love this fight. I haven't made my official pick yet. I'm having a hard time. I got to do it, within the next 24 hours. But I don't know why people aren't looking at that last fight, the Brian Vera fight, which was on that BKB. He looked fantastic in that, and I'm just concerned about David Lemieux's experience. I mean, Marco Antonio Rubio stopped him,
Yeah, he beat the crap out of him, actually, towards the end of the fight.
Well, what happened was Lemieux was beating the crap out of him for the first 5 rounds, then ran out of gas, But anyway, listen, enjoy the fights, my man, and hey, keep an eye on our website. We got a lot of changes going on. We're going to be doing a lot more post-fight shows this year, and a lot of good stuff, man.
Well, hope you get an RSS too set up so I don't have to go to your website every time. All right?
The what?
Get RSS.
RSS feed?
Yeah, get an RSS feed.
I got one. Become a premium podcast subscriber, and
I'm
you'll
a
get
premium
it.
I'm a premium podcast subscriber.
Are you?
You don't have RSS on your website?
No, well, that's the RSS feed for a podcast is you can.
Oh yeah, I have that, but I don't have the one for the website. I'd like to have an RSS feed for your website. Makes things easy for me.
Yeah,
for a busy guy like me.
Email me and I'll hook you up.
Okay, thanks, man.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, bye-bye.
That's Nobody Here, the guy everybody loves to hate in the chat room. But today we had a good conversation. This